You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Doing It for the Exposure, the show that promises to tell all its friends how great you are. I'm your host, Mannequin Blue, and today's special guest is the glittery, ooky, spooky, witchy artist and crafter, Sweet Acid Witch.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
You're doing good. You're keeping busy.
Keeping busy. Packing orders all morning.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the kind of stuff that you do? Because you do quite a bit. You do all sorts of crafts and portraits and everything.
I have an obsessive personality and I try everything. My art is my therapy in many ways.
Yeah.
Predominantly illustration and portraits. But then also I am a big dirty witch and I like making some feel-good witchy things. Like care packages and like nice things for your house, and then lots of jewelry. And what else do I do? Sometimes I burn wood, sometimes I make lino prints, sharp and dangerous things. I've been very lucky. I like to make things that are weird and a little bit sexy, a little bit horrific.
And how did you get into all? Because that's quite a diverse art form. You know, you've got like your jewelry, and then you're burning wood. And how did this happen?
I'm a Gemini. There's all the nice, pretty stuff over there, and then the other one's like, "What if we burned it though, and then covered it in paint? You could sell that." No, it's not. My dad was a very cool artist. He does it now and again still, but him and my two older brothers were very much like weird artists. My brothers don't do it anymore, but one of them had like this weird what was it? It was like a turtle character he used to always draw. So I think all of that, me looking at their like leaving cert spreads and stuff they had, just seeped into my brain. But then I was also the only girl in the family, so I had one of those fashion wheels.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember them? They were great. you like lined up different parts and then rubbed over them, and then you had like a person.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
I do them, but then I'd mess them up. So I had like a pregnant range of clothing where I just like add bumps. And then I had like, I would turn them into superheroes. So I think since I was little, I was mixing like I want to make it pretty mixed with like, but how can I make it weird? Well, because I like that. And my family have just always kind of encouraged me with artwork. If I want to try something, they'll just get me. I was very lucky when I was little. They just get me like there's a bracelet making set. You can make bracelets. And then it just took over with some mad energy in me where I was like, yeah, I'll just do everything. I'll try everything once and see what sticks.
I think it kind of plays into the whole thing as well, as if you're doing the same thing for too long, you kind of get bored of it.
Yeah. Even I'd gotten back into I used to do really detailed artwork with the tiniest pen imaginable. And after a while I was like, I'm not going to do this for a little bit. And then I started doing it in the last month and was like, I love this. This is great. So I think even having like my style is all over the place. Like doing those like draw this in your style challenge is always a pain for me a little bit because my style, I can have like 4 different styles.
It's kind of like depending on your mood.
Yeah, it's like my signature changes. I probably look like I'm forging my own signature all the time. So yeah, even having like different art styles that you can kind of, I want to draw cutesy today, or I want to draw something really dark today. Having different avenues to slip in and out of it is always good to keep it fresh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. So you do a lot of it's kind of, would it be called all-inclusive art as well?
I try as much as I can. Like even when like I was a 90s baby. I grew up with a very diverse television. Like, we had great TV in the 90s. Like TV for younger people. And also like being raised on things like Clueless, where I'm like, I want everything to be fun and colorful and inclusive and just kind of weird and fashionable. I want to watch Clueless now. But like I do mostly draw women or like female presenting, and that's just over time my style just suits it. when I draw men, they look very feminine, and I can work on that a little bit sometimes. But I also just like drawing femmy people. They look nice. But yeah, there's no fun if I drew, a very femme blonde girl constantly. Why not give her green hair and several face tattoos, and also practice drawing different ethnicities, because it's not the 20s. You can't just slap a different color filter on a drawing and say that now it's a black girl, or all that bullshit they used to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're currently doing I've seen that you're actually doing bracelets and jewelry for the Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I didn't know what to I wanted to do something. So I've been donating money myself, but I know I've seen people online saying that like they feel hesitant donating like €1 or €2. So I was like, well, if you want to buy a bracelet off me for €2, the €2 will go into the pot of what other people are donating. And then even if that means I'm just donating 20 quid from a bunch of bracelets, it's something. But a lot of them have been going, people are just sending me their screenshots of their own donations. So it's cool. If I can keep encouraging donations and awareness, then that's what I will do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this is part of what we do as artists. It's, they say that art doesn't need to be political, but it kind of helps sometimes.
Yeah.
Just to get the message out there.
Yeah. And even coming from, because I do, before I said I was taking the year off from producing shows, and then the world was like, yeah, we're taking the year off too. Because I'm in the burlesque world as well. Like, everything is political.
Mm-hmm.
Your art is going to be political. And yeah, you can't not be political nowadays. You have to say something.
Yeah. Well, that's it. There's just so much happening that it's, you'd have to try really, really hard to not be saying anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you want to talk a bit about your burlesque shows as well then? I know you're taking a break, but we might as well while we're here.
So what year is it? For the past 4 or 5 years, I've been running Women in Horror Month events, and that's women with an X instead of an E.
All inclusive.
Yes. See, the Women in Horror Month movement itself has actually become incredibly inclusive, but it's just when you have the branding of the name, you can't really change it. So I've just changed my one because it's a worldwide movement that's been running about 11 years now. So I used to run a lot more events for it, and I was sick of being really poor, as you do. Mm-hmm. So for the last few years, I've mostly been running Mix Horror, which is an all-inclusive, everybody's welcome pageant for weirdos. So we've had Oh Golly Miss Dolly was the first reigning Mix Horror, and now we have Alice Apparently, who are wonderful people and very spooky. And I also do the Good Witch Review, which is my baby. So they tend to have, they'd be like the biggest mixture. They're the shows where I'm going to have burlesque and dance and poetry and music. And there's usually a charity element. So the first one I did was for Repeal, and then I've done others for like Belong To. So they're like my little queer baby shows. I think all of my shows are queer baby shows though.
And how does one get into, because like there are quite a few, I suppose, people who are running shows that started out as performers. Is it just something that kind of it comes with the territory, or? I
started the other way around because for years I was like, I want to do something for Women in Horror Month, and then myself and my partner decided to put on, because he was interested in running music events, and the two of us at the time were working on a comic, and then I wanted to put on a horror show. So we were like, let's do all of them. And the first show went great, but I didn't have a photographer. There was no evidence that show ever happened, but I assure you it was great.
You have to take my word for it. I was there.
So I had just made friends with this wonderful person at the time, and she was like, oh yeah, I have a burlesque troupe. And I was like, dope, let's do that. So they all did fucking amazing, weird acts. It was great. And we had some bands, and we did comic launches, and it was cool. And I think maybe the second or third show I put on, because I began to have like a set group of performers we'd always have. And then I decided I want to perform, because I wanted to perform for years and just never had the guts to do it. So I performed at like one of my lowest selling shows. There was like 5 people there. It's great.
Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter how big the audience is, as long as you play to the back wall, regardless of size.
Yeah.
And I'd say those 5 people that, they went away going, wow, that was great.
I hope so.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they come back to the next one, you're doing something really, really good.
Yeah. I like to think I've moved on and up since then, but yeah. So I think for ages my shows were like I'll perform at them a little bit, but they were always very there was always like slapdash moments of like a host cancelling and going, cool, I'll host. I won't perform. I think one show our photographer was the host as well because someone cancelled.
Oh, right. That's
So
a
it's very, very punk rock DIY shows. But yes, I kind of fell into it backwards then a little bit. But I know there are a lot of performers who do it the other way around because they might be getting booked for shows, but they're not getting booked for shows that they really want to see. It's like there mightn't be a show that serves like weird horror stuff. If you don't see that but you want to perform in that, then you'll make your own show. I think that's where a lot of that comes from.
Yeah, so it would kind of come out of necessity then. It's like, well, nobody else is doing it, so I'll just do it.
Yeah, like to make your own. Like you might be happy in the community, but you're like, I want a little pocket of this community that I don't see happening, and I see it happening in other countries, so I'm gonna do it now.
Yeah, and like I've actually seen that with shows that there are some shows that are set up that go, okay, well, our performers are people that wouldn't necessarily fit the mold of other shows, so we're going to give them a place to go.
Yeah, and you get that with like open stages. A lot are great for that, where it's just if you have something you want to do, go do your thing. There'll be an audience here that will be supportive.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So, because you're not doing shows now at the minute, with the lockdown. Well, you were taking a year off anyway, but now lockdown has hit.
Randy in like February, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do any shows this year. And then a month later, it was like, yeah, no, you're not.
The universe is agreeing with you.
Yeah.
It takes some time. So what have you been doing? Because you'd mentioned something about you're reigniting old skills.
Yeah, all of them. Well, like getting back into drawing more because I go through little pockets of just not drawing, and it's my first passion. And I'll get caught up making jewelry, or I'll get caught up anytime I want to play with the sewing machine and make some stuff. And then I'll kind of go, no, you could just sit with like a pen and paper and just do your thing for 5 minutes. And even recently drawing again back in an older style that I haven't drawn in a few years that I used a lot when I was doing comics. And it's a style I really loved. So I'm like, cool, have this again. Because I always have that fear if you haven't drawn in a few years in a certain style, it's just gone. I think that's the only big one I've had coming back. And digital artwork as well.
Yeah, digital artwork I think is making a huge resurgence. Yeah. Well, this is the thing, because like I was talking to a friend of mine she's a really, really good digital artist. Her name's Lisa Bradley. She actually did the cover art for the show.
It's so pretty.
And I was asking her about it. I was like, I don't want to be stealing work from you, but just like, what should I do? And she was laughing because I was doing like a logo for a friend, for a group of friends, and I sent them I had sketched it out on like pencil and paper kind of thing, and I scanned it in, and they had said to me, well, are you going to digitize it? And so she was laughing at that, because when she first started doing digital art, it was kind of the opposite. It was like, if you're not doing pen and paper, you're not doing it right. So she just thought that was really funny, that just as an anecdote thing, just that she's laughing that it's actually more of a thing now than pen and paper would be.
Yeah, and I love my artwork to look like someone drew it with their hands. Generally, I'm not a like digital artist snob. I just like when you can like see the marks where someone has drawn. I like the rawness of it. But I do really love digital work. There's amazing artists whose work I love that is very digital, and you can tell not a touch of that is pen. But I think it's just for different means. Like I turned a bunch of drawings I did recently into digital artwork, just as like I have the drawings. I'll use them as kind of a practice to get myself back into it. And yeah, you get a completely different finish and completely different idea from the drawing. So I think it's just a cool tool.
Yeah, and it's nice to see the contrast between the two, because like I'd be like yourself. I love doing it physically, and you have the pen and the paper, and you get the lead or whatever it is all over your hand, and
yeah,
you can see the marks where you've rubbed it out repeatedly.
Yeah. And then you can scan it and get rid of that with the magic of digital artwork. So
Yeah.
they work
And
together really well.
no one will ever know.
There's some marks I like showing, and there's others when you're like, no, I used the wrong paper, and it kept buckling, and it kept no. I've erased it too many times.
Yeah, you just start ripping the paper.
Yeah, and then the digital media is your friend.
Yeah, completely.
Even like drawing and making a mistake and being able to just say undo is it's heaven.
Well, see, this is the problem that I have with the digital art, is that I spend more time undoing things that I've already done. Whereas if you're doing it kind of more pen and paper, you do it lightly in pencil, and then you can, if you need to, you can rub it out. But generally, you get to the point where you're like, I'm sick of rubbing it out. I'm just gonna leave it.
Oh yeah, I make most of my mistakes in ink.
When it's permanent.
I work with it, yeah. It's like when you're doing eyeliner and you wing too big, and you're like, well, I'll just do both of them massive. That's kind of how if I ink the wrong way, I'm like, well, her hat's going to be 3 times as big. That's just what's happening now. It makes you brave, I guess. Make big decisions.
Yeah, you're like, this is permanent, so I have to do it right the first time.
I think the worst was I got attacked by a bee while I was inking something. That drawing was gone forever. A massive line up the page.
No, hold on a minute, because that's a story in itself.
It really isn't. He just came at me. He wanted to see what I was drawing, and I did a little, and the line just went up the page, and was like, I spent hours on this, you little bee bastard. And it was just finished. I couldn't fix it.
Oh, that's like, we've heard a lot of really fun stories in the last couple of weeks we've been doing this show, and I think that's the top one so far.
I'm glad my pain is amusing. I don't even remember what it was anymore. I'm sure it was a piece of art. It was great.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but that's wild.
I'm friends with the bees now. It's all good.
Maybe he really wanted the art for himself.
He just wanted to get in there. He was just like, how are you doing? How are you inking? And I was like, ah. He was like, oh, I always scare my friends away.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh.
There's currently a bee flying around the room.
Like right now.
Yeah.
They know. Oh, no, sorry. Okay. I'm calm. But yeah, so you do quite a bit of modeling as well. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Sure. I've only done it with the I always get confused, new generation and next generation. New generation?
Oh yeah, the New Generation Camera Club.
Every time I forget the name and have to type it into Facebook. So like with Eddie Kavanagh and Rick Taylor and everybody else there, I think I started doing that shortly after I started doing burlesque, because I knew Fifi LaRue from years ago, and then we rekindled our friendship when I started doing burlesque shows, because I was like, you do burlesque, do you want to do a show? So she'd kind of taken me into the fold. So I found about the camera club through that and started. I think the first one I did was like a punk theme, and I had just dyed my hair like split straight down the middle, 2 different colors, so it was great. But it was, yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of I don't know, I'm trying not to say any of the bitchy stuff about it, but there's a lot of give and take with the photographers. You'll have a different vision than they have, and you're trying to mash them together to make a nice picture that you're all going to be happy with. So it's an interesting, like, collaborative art form that I think that's the only time I've worked with something like that, where like I have a vision of, no, I'm a warrior princess, and they're like, yeah, you're a princess. I'm like, no. Different. You're trying to meld different ideas of something, and working with the mood of the photographer. If they're very standoffish or very timid, your body's gonna move a different way, because you're not sure. If they're really open and really warm, you're gonna be completely relaxed. Yeah, it seems like a very far away thing. I don't think I've done it in about a year now.
Yeah, I think because they've since moved studio, haven't they?
They moved studio and then lockdown, because I was meant to do one like just as lockdown, and message was like, hey guys, I don't think I can do it, and they were like, yeah, we're shutting everything. I was like, okay, cool.
The world is shutting down.
But I think it might have been like summer last year was the last time. So it's a long distance memory, but it's great fun when it's great fun. I only nearly passed it once because I was wearing a wig and a beanie and it was the height of summer.
Yeah, that studio used to get quite hot, actually.
They very kindly aimed a fan at me for the rest of the photo shoot. So they looked after me.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing as well, because when you're doing a collaborative effort with other people, like there is very much, you have to make sure everybody's okay. And like especially with things like camera clubs, there can be 10, 15 photographers, and so
Yeah.
you're standing there, each one has to get their turn, and you're standing there and you're doing your posing, and it can be quite exhausting.
Yeah. I did hair modeling once, and it's amazing for having done nothing all day how exhausting it is. Because you're in a room with 30 or 40 people all using hair dryers and straighteners and everything hot. And then we had to stand for maybe a half an hour or something while the judges came in and looked at it. And I nearly hit the deck. Another girl in the room actually hit the deck. She was wrapped in latex.
Oh.
And for like, I've been sitting all day while people did my hair and makeup. I didn't do anything. But it's so difficult.
Yeah, no, those hair shows actually, they can be. I've done two. No, I've done one competition and one show, and I remember for the first one I did, they gave me ISIS wings. They were like, "This is your costume," and I thought, "This is fantastic. I love these things." And me being silly, when the judges came around, they were like, "Pick a pose and hold it." So I had like the ISIS wings up in the air, and then halfway through, I'm like, "This was a terrible idea."
Yeah. So even like waiting in the wings.
Mhm.
I think it was at the Wella show we did in London. We were in like the nice backstage area, and then they were like, "You're gonna go wait in a dank alleyway in your heels for 40 minutes. Like we'll let you know." And I think I was barefoot. I think I walked the catwalk barefoot, so I was fine, but I had to dodge everyone's shoes. But there
Mhm.
was girls around me with like 7-inch heel, like just ridiculous heels, and I just felt for them. It's crazy. Like we were looked after, but then at a certain point it was like, well, there's a competition. Just
Yeah.
wait, you're not important here. You're just the model. Like, oh, okay.
And that's unfortunate, but that's like, if that would be the case with a lot of competitions that require
Yeah.
models. It's not just hair, like it can be body painting, it can be special effects. Like the models, they do go through a lot. They do
Yeah.
suffer. We do suffer for our art.
Yes. We suffer for other people's art sometimes.
Sometimes we suffer more for other people's than we do our own.
Yeah. Like in camera club situation, being asked like, can you twist your head this way and your body around that way? Just hold that. Just hold that and keep your eyes open. Like, okay, no, I'm a pretzel. No.
So for anyone who's sitting at home listening and maybe wants to try and, okay, maybe they won't want to get into modeling on those stories, but anyone who wants to try and get into any of the art forms that you do, what kind of advice could you give them?
Just start. Generally. It doesn't take a lot. With earlier this year, also when I decided to not do shows, I had said to myself, you're just going to focus on artwork. You're not going to make anything this year. And then I lied to myself because I was thinking I'll save money. I'll only just have a pen and paper. Be cool. And then I broke that and I started making jewelry. But you need so little to start with artwork. You don't need the best pens and the best paper for starting. Just start. Instagram is amazing. I get a lot of reference from Instagram because I do lots of portraiture and lots of like human form. Going on there, and if you want to find whatever body shape you want to find, you'll find. There's also great like accounts that are just for reference. So I find Instagram amazing for that. And then you can also like credit the people to let them know like, hey, gee. For a lot of the other things I do, YouTube, I'd say, because then you can see how hard does pyrography look. Does it look like I could do it, or lino cutting? But a lot of them, lino cutting isn't like an expensive one to start. Pyrography is an initial investment, and then you're grand because you just go nick wood from the park, I guess. I guess.
Fallen wood, right? Fallen wood.
Fallen wood. Don't cut down trees for your art. Not okay. Like even you could start doing digital artwork on paint. Like look at oh no, what was her name? Ali Brosh. Her webcomic was so successful. That was done with paint. So you can start with nothing. Just start.
Yeah, and I think that's always the hardest thing to do is to just we had Cian in the first episode, and he referred to it as blank page trauma.
Yeah.
And that is the thing. Like I myself suffer from that. You see a blank canvas and you go, what do I do?
And that's where reference comes in handy. That if you're thinking, okay, I want to draw somebody, go onto your Explore tab and just scroll and scroll till you see something that you like. Then you have a shape to start with. Or especially since lockdown, there's so many drawing prompts going around. Like I've been living on Instagram, if you can't tell. There's so many drawing prompts going around that you can, okay, cool, I need to make a drawing that has these 3 words, these 3 items in it. It's something to start with. So I used to write short stories a lot, and I'd get that as well when for your like leaving cert or junior cert, when you were given a prompt to write with, like start a story with a sentence. I love them. When it just said write a short story, I was like, but about what? To write about anything. So yeah, I like restrained freedom.
Like having a direction to go in.
Yeah, just give me a little hint and then I'm good. But don't just tell me draw something. Like anytime people meet someone and they tell them they're a comedian, they're like, all right, tell me a joke. No, there's so many I could tell you. I don't know who you are.
I don't know your sense of humor.
Yeah, it's very subjective.
Yeah, no, that's the same with anything. You know, you're a musician. Sing me a song. Well, I don't know what songs you like.
Yeah, got my backing band. I don't have. It's not going to be the same.
Yeah. So before we go, is there anything that you would like to chat about that we haven't covered already?
I don't think so. I think we're good. I think we went all over the place.
Yeah,
in a very well formatted way.
We went on an adventure. We went up and down through the mountains and
over the glen, off with the ducks. Wherever that song went.
Somebody knows. So where would be the best place to find you if people want to keep in touch?
Instagram, because that's where I live. I've recently decided to give a lot more attention to my like professional Instagram, so that's where I live now, which is Acid Witch with 4 A's, and that's where to find me as a person. And you can find links to anywhere else that I am, like shops and anywhere else that I am.
And we'll include because you sent us a few links here, we'll include the links to your Facebook as well, and your Big Cartel.
Yeah.
That's your online shop, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll share all of that, and we'll share the little discount code that you've sent us as well for anyone interested. She does fantastic art. It's really top notch.
Thank you.
We got to plug our artists. We got to support each other.
Thank you. You're very talented yourself.
Oh, you're sweet. This is not about me.
Okay, sorry.
All right, sweet. It's been a serious pleasure having you on the show, and I'm so glad that you could take the time out to join me. Thank
you very much for having me. It was a good time away from the cats who just keep biting me. So this was a delight. But genuinely, thank you so much. This was lovely. I love what you're doing. And then outside of the podcast, just continuing to give a spotlight to artists right now is great.
Oh, absolutely. And we're going to keep doing that for as long as Nerd to Know Media lets me. They gave me a very long lead and I'm running with it.
Awesome.
So for those of you listening at home, if you enjoyed this episode of Doing It for the Exposure and would like to hear more in the future, make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at DIFTE Podcast. You can also check out our stream on nerdtoknowmedia.com. We stream weekly on Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.